Hello everyone, this is a quick video for your creative writing question tomorrow or whenever soon, the AQA syllabus, and this has been adapted from their mark scheme. So you're going to be awarded 40 marks for a 45-minute question, hopefully 45 minutes. That's how much time you should take to plan, write and read over your answer. So as you'll know, as you've probably seen from other videos and your teachers have been banging on about, you'll be awarded 40 marks, 24 for the content, the what, as we'll see, and 16 for the language, the how, the grammar and punctuation, using those correctly and sparingly to create meaning. And so let's dive in, really. One without the other will mean your essay is not complete, as you've heard before. So let's look at how you can get inspired. So if you're thinking and you've got a complete block, a foggy brain in the examiner's hall, you feel under pressure and you're struggling to think of plot, characters and setting and how you can create something that's entertaining and compelling, think about something you find inspiring. Don't just plagiarize from your favorite books, TV or film or games, or reuse names, but use elements of what you find exciting from that genre. So it's always going to be a kind of genre or kind of writing. You might get something where you'll see a photo of someone sitting out looking across some misty mountains, and you're given great license, great power to go out and create something that is actually inventive. However, I would say when getting inspired, it is sometimes good to be safe rather than sorry, so don't write about something you don't know about. Right, okay. And when we're writing, we should use a range of language devices in each paragraph. 3 devices in each paragraph is great. Your repetitions, your similes, your metaphors, your rules of 3, and first, second, and then Oxford comma usually. A comma after the second item, and then the third thing, and then third thing, rule of 3, and then well-chosen adjectives. Don't overdo it. I'm going to discuss that a little bit more below. If you've already used similes, vary them. So what you could do to really make sure that you actually are having variation in all of these, is that you could actually, once you've written a simile, you could write sim in the margin, cross it out or tick it or something like that, and that actually will show your examiner that what your sort of strategy, if you like. This might be a slightly joyless way of working, but you're getting the joy from writing about something you know about and you enjoy. You just have to make sure you really hit home the things that you're being graded on, and this will force the examiner's hand to really give you those higher grades. And it also includes making sure that you have a well-chosen vocabulary, one that you don't often use but you will hopefully have got better at from reading more fiction. For example, if you do read fiction, and you should be reading fiction, that's a great way to pick up a greater, wider vocabulary. But also another very simple strategy is using a thesaurus. 10-minute strategy, touch and go with this one. You find a word that you use a lot of, happy, angry, and then you write some alternatives on a flashcard. Before the exam, you have a look at them, you try to learn them off by heart, and you make sure that the alternative word, the alternative adjective, is suitable for the context in which you're using it. So annoyed, bitter, enraged, exasperated, furious, heated, impassioned, indignant, etc., etc., etc. So indignant, you might say that someone is righteously indignant. Jesus was righteously indignant at the moneylenders in the temple. This is a kind of just anger. Bitter is a different kind of anger, isn't it? So there are all these sort of fine grades even in emotion. So be careful that you actually know these words as well, not just whipping out a thesaurus and going straight to a word that you use a lot of, okay? And we want to make sure, related to this, and we're going to see it just below, that we have a good number of sentences that are well chosen with their adjectives, but they are also suitable for their audience and purpose. So the warm sea gently lapped against the hot sand is great for a desert island style piece of writing, a Robinson Crusoe-esque piece of writing. If you know Robinson Crusoe, arguably one of the first novels, comes out of travel writing, but we don't need to overdo this. So we don't need to say, if we're writing the same thing, a desert island style narrative story, that the boiling sea smashed against the hot sand. This might work, this kind of hyperbole might work, if your audience and purpose is you're writing about an apocalyptic scenario, you're writing about climate change, or something like that. So something where things are not well. But if it's just a really hot day, then you'll have to convey that some other way. So think about your character. You could think about the beads of sweat and the humidity and some other things, but really try to think precisely about your vocabulary and what you're trying to do. So audience and purpose has to guide this. Okay, number 4, punctuation. Commas and full stops don't count with the examiners, but just to remind you, full stops must appear at the end of your main sentence, obviously, after your quotation, and after any brackets, parentheses, which give line or page numbers. So if you give a line and page number, there'll be a full stop after that. But if you are just quoting, you can have the full stop before the quotation mark, like so. Some people have it after. Really, it doesn't matter too much. I always go for the full stop before the quotation mark or the speech mark. It's usually a quotation mark. It's only a speech mark if someone is actually speaking. You're quoting direct speech, and then you can add the quotation mark after that, and then your full stop. Okay, if you use commas to frame an aside, so as we'll see here, then you must open and close your commas. So, for example, each constructs a city designated by its modern, not ancient British name. So this is the aside, the kind of thing that's unnecessary information. So if we took that out, it would still make sense. Each constructs a city designated by its modern name. Okay, so these are our commas framing an aside. Examiners expect everyone in year 11 to use semicolons, colons, brackets, and ellipses even. There we go. And there are all sorts of ways in which you can use these to create meaning. Brackets can be used for extra information. Semicolons can replace connectives, and they're useful for drawing two distinct ideas closer together, so the person reading can sort of breeze through them. They're not often found in fiction, but they sometimes are. Colons can also replace connectives, and they're used for starting lists. They're quite commanding and terse. They could be used to mimic the style of official documents as well. If you're writing letters, you're writing to persuade, or you're writing to show how a character might see some kind of document or something like that. Ellipses could signal a change in time or setting. They can be useful for flashbacks and flash forwards, and they can also be good for your possible cliffhanger, which are very, very good because your examiner's imagination might kick into overdrive, and they might start thinking about where that story might go. An ellipsis is like forcing your reader to sign on the dotted line with their own imagination in a way. So they're great. And number 5, long and short paragraphs and sentences for meaning. So long and short sentences, variation in those for meaning, for greater meaning. You want to put the examiner in a position where they're compelled to give you the mark no matter what, as we've said. So sentences of just one word: I didn't know my father, no, that wasn't true, or no sleep, groggy. So these examples work because they show how the narrator feels, i.e. sad, maybe repressing feelings, and then the second, tired, so groggy, no sleep, groggy. So when you're tired, you're not thinking, you're not especially talkative. So we can also use lots of different modes of narration as well. So think about dialogue, think about characters reading lists, use that sparingly if at all. They're looking at different objects. And also, as you might have seen from other practice papers, using characters' emotions, there we go, with the free and direct discourse of a third-person narrator. So free and direct discourse is where a third-person narrator seemingly knows a lot about the character and their internal feelings, so they're kind of omniscient, all-knowing, but they also blend the character's emotion with their narration. So Emily was one of those people who hated confronting liars. How does the narrator know this? She put down her coffee. He was obviously lying. So we see here that we're in a sort of hybrid state of narration known as free and direct discourse, in which characters' internal feelings, history, is blended with a third-person narration. So, and think about also related to punctuation, these dashes as well. So this and varying your sentences. So this point is both complex and simple. So think about how using an M dash here, these dashes are like an aside, they're like brackets, but they're a bit more hard and decisive compared to brackets. How the same sentence, differently conveyed, can be slightly different in how we read them, how they can convey slightly different meanings. So in the first one, we have the M dashes, which we use for a phrase, a word, or an independent clause. So that's a phrase, a word, or an independent clause. So he looked over the wave of spectators. We could have, yes, it was really Lacazette. So this is like the narrator freezing. Yes, it's him. And this, we've just used standard comma splicing as an aside to achieve roughly the same thing, but it reads slightly differently. He looked over the spectators and yes, it was really Lacazette. So the difference here is that one sounds maybe more surprising than the other, and it affects how we pause over the words. So if you really want to capture your reader, think about M dashes. They're written like this, M dash is like that. It's usually two of these. It's two of these short ones, and then your keyboard, your word processor will convert them. Okay, so hopefully that's been helpful. Let me know if it hasn't, because I'm always on call to create better videos. I will see you in the next video, and let me know if you would like this document. Thank you very much. Bye bye.